It's now recording. All right, let's do this. Welcome everyone to our inaugural episode of Lift Talk. Today, we're diving into a compelling conversations on how to success-proof your social enterprise and crowdfunding campaign. I'm speaking to you from the lens of the Kulin Nation, and I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners and to pay my respect to their elder past, present, and emerging. For those tuning in for the first time, my name is Irene Tsang, and I'm the founder and CEO of LiftWomen Group. We are country's first and leading women-focused crowdfunding platform and social enterprise. Our mission is to level the financial playing field for female entrepreneurs by creating equitable access to funding and opportunities for all women and girls. So if you are a female founder seeking non-dilutive capital, mentorship, and support, feel free to reach out to us, and we are keen to assist you on your entrepreneurial journey. So joining us today is Jehan, a man wearing many hats, innovator, father, impact entrepreneurs, and co-founder of Who Gives a Crap. Jehan is passionate about innovation, delight, impact, and yes, toilets. He combines all these elements into his work at Who Gives a Crap, where he leads strategy and digital products. Now, let me paint a fuller picture of this iconic brand. Who Gives a Crap is one of Australia's most iconic household brands, founded by Simon, Danny, and Jehan. The brand was launched to tackle a heartbreaking global issue that 2 billion people living without access to a toilet. They donate half of their profit to make a global impact. The company kicked off in 2012 with a crowdfunding campaign, during which Simon live streamed himself sitting on a toilet in a warehouse until they have enough pre-orders to start production. 50 hours later, he raised over $50,000, and then they delivered their first products in March 2013 and have been on the road ever since, having sold millions of rolls of toilet paper and donate over $13 million. Proud to Who Gives a Crap, Jehan studied engineering and computer science at the University of Melbourne and launched his first career at the Boston Consulting Group. From there, he co-founded his first social enterprise, a click-to-give nonprofit search engine called Ripple. Through Ripple, Jehan met Simon, who shared his ideas for Who Gives a Crap. After helping to launch the business, Jehan spent time at Google, working on the strategy at YouTube. Now he's happily back home at Who Gives a Crap, leading the way to a big, impactful future. He's also the most famous comedy YouTuber in Sri Lanka. So Jehan, your company has been a profound inspiration and guiding light for me as I shape the impact and business model for LiftWomen. It's not every day that we came across entrepreneurs who successfully blend profit and purpose in such a compelling manner. So without further ado, let's dive into the heart of today's conversation. Wow, so Jehan, let's go back to the beginning. What catalyzed the ideas behind Who Gives a Crap, and how did you and your co-founders convert this concept into an actionable business plan, and how did it all started?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me, Irene, and thanks for thinking of Who Gives a Crap. Crowdfunding has been a big part of the Who Gives a Crap story, so it's a pleasure to be talking to you, and hopefully some of the people that you're working with and addressing can learn something from our journey. For us, how did we get started? I mean, great question. Why did we start a toilet paper company? Why would anyone start a toilet paper company when they had no idea what they're doing? Great question. For us, this co-founding team has been involved in a number of businesses. This is really the third one from the team, and the one that has really taken off the most. But through that time, there were a number of ideas that were kind of bubbling around that were central to getting us to Who Gives a Crap. Three in particular stand out. The first one was just this idea of businesses that give back. Always really inspired by that idea of showing that businesses can be part of the solutions to some of the world's problems. And that was really inspirational. And that's been a common thread in all the things that this team has done. The second one was some of the statistics, like you've mentioned this before, but we were looking at the Millennium Development Goals and saw at the time it was 2.4 billion people that didn't have access to a proper toilet and proper sanitation, which is a staggering number. And when you see numbers like that, it's sort of, it's hard to put it in perspective at all, but it was clearly a huge problem that is at a global scale. And the third one was toilet humor, really, like bad puns. Loved the idea of, could you really tackle a serious problem like sanitation with a silly and delightful approach? Like, is that a different way at coming at a philanthropic mission? So those three things, the idea of businesses giving back, big development goals, and silly puns, combine themselves to eventually lead to Who Gives a Crap. And we saw maybe there's an opportunity to create eco-friendly toilet paper and give 50% of our profits from that to donate towards wash and sanitation. That's how we got started. And then you asked about a business plan. Absolutely, we did write a business plan at that very early stage. There's a bunch of engineers and ex-consultants and ex-bankers sort of on the team. So we absolutely wrote a business plan that had those concepts in it. Probably all the numbers in those business plans were wrong, but the thesis was there, which is that, if you could address a problem like that in a fun and engaging way and do something different that was really a look good, feel good, do good version of an everyday product, maybe there's something there that customers would like. And yeah, that's how Who Gives a Crap got started.
Oh, love that. It's so cool. Well, so I know your launch was initiated through a crowdfunding campaign. And can you share some strategies and best practices that contribute to its success?
Yeah, crowdfunding, as I mentioned, has been a huge part of Who Gives a Crap. In fact, we launched with a big crowdfunding campaign, but I'm sure your audience would be interested. But before that, even we had a crowdfunding campaign to get us entry into essentially a business incubator. So there's really two big make or break crowdfunding moments for us. Let me just talk about them one by one. The first one was, we had nothing. We just had an idea on a piece of paper, essentially. And we heard about an organization called the Unreasonable Institute. And their ethos is, you need to have unreasonable ideas to change the world. And so they were looking essentially for people that had out of the box, kind of crazy ideas to pitch something to them. And we said, hey, let's sell toilet paper and use the profits to build toilets. And we got accepted to get entry into this thing. But in order to do that, you had to crowdfund your fees to attend this course, essentially. And so we spent a bunch of time thinking about crowdfunding in those early days. And that was very much about, hey, we've got this idea. We want to make it reality. Could you help crowdfund just to get us enough to go and attend this conference and this incubator program, which was transformative for the business because it got us a few, mainly friends and family, to support that initial step of the business. But actually going to that incubator is where the full founding team got together, where we really crystallized what we were doing. That eventually, now we're talking a few years later, led us to the second big crowdfunding moment for the company, which was our launch. And this was, as people who had no idea how to start a toilet paper company, the first thing we did was Google how to start a toilet paper company. And we did some calculations and worked out we need about $50,000 to place the first order. That was basically the minimum amount. And we absolutely did not have $50,000 laying around. And so crowdfunding became the solution to that problem. And we approached it in a, how do you cut through, how do you make as much, generate as much interest into a boring product like toilet paper. We knew we had to do something because people don't really think about toilet paper on a day-to-day basis. But on the flip side, it's toilet paper. You're on a toilet. There's like so much we can do with that. And so that was the genesis of the idea. Let's have our CEO, Simon Griffiths, sit on a toilet. He had his pants down, he had a live stream, and we would say he would not get off this toilet until we hit our $50,000 goal. That's what we did. And funny fact, the live stream kept getting cut off because it was deemed inappropriate content. But it was totally safe for work. It was totally fine. He had his shirt was very long and nothing was looking was exposed at all. But we had this idea, and every time the live stream cut out, he would actually be able to go to the toilet for real and come back to the live stream while you set things up. But looking at both those crowdfunding moments, I think what really worked for us is, number one, we we wanted to make it fun. We wanted to make it stand out. And in both cases, we were trying to do things that made it more than just like, hey, support us, but the whole message was fun. So doing a live stream on a toilet is like the best version of that. And that's what ended up going viral. I think a number of people started tweeting about it. And eventually towards about the 4 or 5 hour mark, Simon was doing a TV interview on breakfast television from the toilet, which I don't think anyone has done since then, but it's a good example of how you can use humor to cut through the noise in some of these instances. And also, hopefully, it becomes a much more a positive and easy to get on board kind of message. That's been the big one for us, like trying to make doing good be fun.
I really love the way that you guys think about your strategies, like very systematically articulate what you really need. And I love the fact that you try to inject fun into every process and every step. That's so cool. And I think that's also the things that make your brand stand out as well. And it definitely worked. Do you actually have plan B that what if you didn't reach the goal and what happens to Simon?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the crowdfunding approach, which is it feels high risk, but I think it's actually not, because if it works, it will gain traction. You'll find your audience and you should be able to reach your goal or get close to it, which is great. If it doesn't work, almost by definition, it hasn't really gone that wide. And it's like a small number of people that may not have engaged, or not enough people saw it. And so it's one for the experience books, and there's still, you haven't burnt any bridges. You can definitely try other things. And so that was how we thought about it. Like, we didn't necessarily need to have a plan B in place when we hit go, because we weren't on a time constraint. And if it didn't work, we were confident that it didn't mean the end of the business, and there was plenty of time to come up with other ways to get there.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Yeah, that should be the really good tips and kind of share with the founders, because I always say crowdfunding is kind of fun and just low risk, or even though no risk to do that. And you can always come back to do another round. It's just a test and learn as well. So absolutely great tips. And so I think, another way is Unreachable. I attend a workshop that run by Daniel, the founder of the Unreachable Group, is the guest speaker. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah,
he's fantastic. And their whole model is very much, not only is it unreasonable ideas, what you need to change the world, but just in general, how can we rethink the way capital works? Can we make it more than just driving a profit motive, but also an impact motive? And like, that is a huge, big, amazing idea. It's also sort of at the core of what we're doing as well, showing the businesses can be part of the solution. I love what they're doing at the Unreasonable Institute. We were actually, it was funny. We were in the first batch. So it was like a startup applying to be part of another startup. And both of us were figuring out our models as we went. But it's great to see that they're doing great work. And yeah, for any listeners, I would highly, highly recommend checking out what they're doing.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and I absolutely love what he said is you can do well and do good at the same time. Yeah, so it's really good. Well, okay, go to our next question is, in addition to the crowdfunding, I know fundraising is often a pivotal part of any startup journey. So could you also share some valuable insight and lessons you've learned in the fundraising process, and how these funds enable you to scale your impact?
Yeah, so for us, we did crowdfunding at the very start, and then there was the vast majority, the next almost 10 years of the business has been largely self-funded. We've done some debt and things like that along the way. And so, in that stage, the way we thought about funding was really to help us get cash flow in order to scale. Like, that was the name of the game in those early years. And so we were very, very focused on cash flow, and how do we think about retention in particular? Like, once you acquire a customer, how do you have them coming back? And that's why we chose a product like toilet paper. It is an everyday product that people keep using. So it doesn't quite apply to every single business out there. But for us, like, that's one of the reasons we chose toilet paper, was it has this recurring purchase behavior. That's what you want. And like, we always thought that if there's a way to build a charitable element into everyday products like that, that's how you're going to really create a lot of impact over time. So for us, in terms of funding, we really tried to be self-funded as much as we could. We used debt as much as we could to manage cash flow. And then that cash flow is what, as you mentioned, scaling impact. That is, once we got to a point where, say, the Australian business was working well, we got good retention rates, we were getting good NPS. That was enough to give us confidence to let's expand the model. And we expand to the US and the UK, and that international expansion is really like helped us then scale our impact over time. So that's how we've thought about it. And then the only other point I would make is we definitely try to keep in mind both the financial metrics that matter and the impact metrics that matter. And that's been really important for us, because we're 50% of profits donated. So in a way, every decision we make is equally bottom line profit decision and an impact decision, and those two things are always intact. So as a result, when we talk to people about funding, we're able to show all the financial metrics they would want alongside the impact metrics that are great. So that's how we've approached it, and it's been a really good test for the business of how you can fund your own growth as you go as much as you can.
So speaking of the profit metrics and the impact, so it's always, what we found is always very difficult to balance. So I know Who Gives a Crap is doing really well, recognized as a really good social enterprise and recognized as its social impact. So how do you balance profit and impact, especially when it's early stage that you don't really make a lot of profit? And what lessons can our audience learn and take from your model?
Yeah, this has been a big question. And in fact, one of the things when we went to the Unreasonable Institute, which was sort of 2 or 3 years before we even sold our first product, was debating this question. Like, what is the right model for us? Is it 100% goes to charity, like a full nonprofit model? Is it like a give one, get one was another kind of model we thought about, where for every number of toilet rolls we would sell, that would be equivalent number of toilets that we could fund. That was sort of another model we decided. We looked at another one was where we ended up, which was the 50% donation model. For us, the calculation came down to, we believe that by donating 50% of our profits, as opposed to 100%, that would give us enough money to grow the business. So in the long run, we could more than double our impact. That's sort of how we thought about it. And then on a day-to-day basis, it also really helps because, as I mentioned before, you're kind of automatically giving equal weighting to those decisions. And so you're looking at how much profit can we make, which is equal to how much donations can we make. And that's really good. Where the tension comes in is probably short-term versus long-term. I think being pure, thinking about the long-term is how we've run the business in general. And I think that's where having a profit for purpose model, it encourages you, and you almost have to think on the long term. So we'll be willing to sacrifice short-term donations for much bigger long-term donations. Invest in the international expansion is a good example of that, where we were investing our profits from Australia to fund the setting up of the US market and the setting up of the UK market. And now that is more than half of our business is overseas. And so that's a really good example of a short-term investment for long-term gain. And so that's how we think about it in general, which is, if you're going to try and address big, huge problems like sanitation, you need to take a long-term view. And that kind of comes back to your day-to-day business decisions.
I love that. But I guess the challenge is, my follow-up question is, what about the early stage? So I'm sure that you didn't really make a profit at day one. So what about the early stage when you're trying to build a business and make it to the point that you're profitable and then you can donate money? So how do you manage that period?
Yeah, so we have been lucky in that we've been profitable from those early days. And a lot of that was driven by a real focus on organic marketing, word of mouth, getting that out there, which is sort of the reason, the sort of hidden advantage of these boring everyday products if you can make them fun, people will talk about it because it's so unusual for people to, we're taking a product that was underneath your bathroom sink and getting people to put it on their shelf or put it on their social media. It's a big jump. And so that's how we thought about it in those early days, which is, we do want to have a profit because we have, the whole model is 50% of our profits is donated. So it is important that we are profitable and can prove that this model works, even in the small scale in the early days. And so it was definitely about retention. It was definitely about word of mouth marketing so that that profit was there in the early stages. And that gave us confidence that, hey, we're able to make some impact. We're able to grow the business. And there's something here to scale up. That's how we thought about it.
Oh, I love that. Additional tips. So my another question is like, one of the challenge that many female founders face, perhaps due to our nature of nurturing giving, so is the hesitation to ask. So especially when it comes to seeking for support and funding. So especially when we're doing crowdfunding, you got to take a lot of courage to ask people for help or support for money. So I know, do you have any insight on tips of mastering the art of ask? And also today, do you have an ask for our audience?
The art of the ask is definitely very, very challenging, and you want to be able to get it right and simple and clear. For us, because we've been driven by purpose, that really does change the conversation when you make an ask of someone of like to support something, because it's much bigger than the business itself. You're really trying to demonstrate these bigger things. So for us, we've always tried to balance the do good element of what we're doing and the fun element of what we're doing in the ask. And so we've really tried to make it clear that, hey, especially when we're initially crowdfunding, we're saying, hey, we've got this idea that could be something here to address this crazy big problem. And we've continually talked about the 2 billion people that don't have access to a toilet, because that is really truly why we're doing this. And so that purpose has been center in our ask all the time. And also we've tried to build in an element of what's entertaining about this. How can we make it really, really interesting? And I think in general, do good and have fun is like a fantastic combination where people are much more receptive when you make an ask, number one. And I think also they're more willing to share it. I think that's the hidden thing about being positive and delightful in your messaging. I think as opposed to, at the time, a lot of the philanthropic stuff was much more guilt driven. It was much more like, look at this, person in this country that's so much worse off than you. While that is all true, and that will be motivating with an initial ask, I don't think you can keep going back to that well over time. I think a positive, uplifting, and delightful message is much, for the long term, is a much better place to have that conversation and to make asks. And you can keep talking to people about that for a long period of time. Whereas if you're really focusing on a guilt-driven message, I think people tune that out quite quickly. Number one, and also like they're less willing to share it with others. So for us, it's really been about having clear why we're asking, and also having a really positive side of that. And those two things together, I think, make for a compelling message.
Well, I like the point that you make it guilt-driven and also purpose-driven, and I think there's a difference in it. I also always share with the founders trying to start a crowdfunding is like, think about why you're doing your business. Like there must be a purpose there. There must be a problem that you're solving. If you believe that you're creating some value and solutions to that problems that you think you're going to solve it. So I think you have value in there. I love your point, and it's really good. So I think I want to go to the last sections of our interview, and it's called Quick Lift. So when I had this idea of starting a Lift Talk to interview inspiring leaders making positive changes in the world, I wanted to introduce kind of like a signature section. So I create a tradition. So I wanted to ask our guests like 5 rapid fire questions that could give our audience like a very practical, inspiring takeaways that they could really act on it. And so are you ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, my number one question is, what's the one piece of advice you would give to your younger self at the start of your entrepreneurial journey?
For me, it's probably still, I would give myself now that I'm not young at all, but it would be just be willing to soak up some of these challenges and just live in it and figure it out. Sometimes when you hit a roadblock, you can feel like overwhelmed by it, and you can't do anything. You're almost paralyzed by this stress that you're having. I think the advice is like, don't let that happen. Like, even if, there's a bunch of numbers that are not the set of numbers you want, and it's not telling the right message, and it's problematic, that's okay. That's going to happen, obviously. And being willing to like soak in it and actually keep diving into that information, I think is one of the things I admire when I see people in that kind of resilience, as opposed to me, especially when I was younger. I would, when I saw things not right, it would kind of stun me a little bit, and I would almost just like hands off keyboard, take just like, I can't deal with this, and it would paralyze my ability to solve those problems. I still do that today, by the way. So I don't know whether I've changed that much, but yeah, soak it up, enjoy that process of like the challenges that will come.
Love it. My second question is, so what's the one book or podcast or resources that significantly impact your journey that you want to share with us?
I got many. On a podcast, I love the Acquired podcast. I'm sure many of your listeners would be listening to it. It looks at all sorts of acquisitions over time, but in particular, I would recommend the episode about Lockheed and Skunk Works, the development of the jet engine. It's just a fascinating story about innovation and how people are able to come up with something new under huge pressures. And these podcasts, by the way, they're like 3 hours long. So I would play it in 2x, and I would wait till I'm on a plane or something like that. But they're amazing stories. And this one in particular about Lockheed is just full of history and many industries coming together for development of new technology. And I think it's totally applicable to any entrepreneur out there, that especially that's thinking about things through an innovation lens. Books, Lean Startup. At some point we used to give the Lean Startup to everyone that joined Who Gives a Crap. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. And resource, can't go past YouTube. I YouTube everything all the time. Any problem I have, I look something up on YouTube, whether it be a technical problem, whether it be a narrative thing, whether it be just research. I use YouTube. I don't think there's anything you can't learn. You can learn anything on YouTube. So I love it as a way to just expand the way I'm thinking about something.
I love it. I know what to listen today during. All right, next one is my favorite question. So can you share a failed forward moment, a failure that actually set you up for future success, and what you learned from it?
Well, I think for us, and it's very relevant to crowdfunders, one of the reasons we did this big stunt, sit on the toilet, live stream, was, yes, of course, to get people's attention, but also specifically to get supermarkets to make it take notice of Who Gives a Crap. Because at the time we did this, 99% of toilet paper was bought in supermarkets. And the fail forward was 0 supermarkets contacted us after that. And we were like, okay, this is interesting. We got customers, we got a product, we got 0 distribution. And the fail forward of it was we went to Shopify and we started a direct-to-consumer toilet paper model, which at the time was not really, we didn't know if people would buy their toilet paper online, but it has been an amazing channel for us. You get to speak to your customer directly, and especially with Profit for Purpose, you get to tell them what you're all about, the impact that their choices are making. All of that comes much more seamlessly in a direct-to-consumer model in those early days. So it's been that was an amazing fail forward moment for us. Of course, we are now in Aldi and Woolies, and those things have come in time. But initially, it was definitely, what do we do here? We got no supermarket interest. How do we sell toilet paper? That led us to the direct-to-consumer model, which really funded the whole growth of the business.
Wow, this is incredible. Love it. Love it. Well, okay. So, and then my next question is, what keeps you motivated to do what you do every day? And how can our audience find their own unique drive?
For me, there's sort of a Venn diagram that I've tried to stay in the middle of throughout, anything I do, which is how can you do some good, which is a big one. How can it be really fun? And how can it be innovative in some way? Those three things, if I'm anywhere on that Venn diagram, like, people's careers sort of fluctuate over time. But if I'm somewhere in that Venn diagram, I feel like that gets me up in the morning. That's a rewarding. I'm grateful to be able to spend my time doing something in that universe. And the closer I get to the center, it's even better. But I would encourage people to think about what the equivalent of that is. And I don't know how I landed on that, but at some point I just remember thinking about it in terms of a Venn diagram, maybe because I'm an engineer. But it's really useful because there are times when things totally don't work, and it's like, hey, what the hell am I doing? But zooming out and seeing, like, are you broadly like in the right? You may not have even got all three of them going at all times, but hey, I'm broadly in that area, and I'm working on things that motivate me. I think is a really useful thing to keep in mind as people go through their journeys.
Love it. I always love turning something negative into positive. So the way that I try to run Lift is also because now starting a new journey, like entrepreneur journey for women and access to funding for women, is so challenging. I always had a vision that what if in the next 5 to 10 years, doing this is actually fun and easy? Then it's going to be amazing. So yeah, I love what you just said. So my last quick Lift question is, so being a founder often has around the clock responsibility. So what's the one thing that you do to relax and wind you down and maintain your balance?
Good question. 2 words: Mario Kart. I mean, Nintendo, they're just so creative. Great way to unwind, great way to feel like a kid, no matter if you're totally not a kid. I love anything that gets that creative stuff going. Mario Kart's like the quickest and easiest one, but I like to build things. I like to Lego, stuff like that. Whether it be by myself or with my kids, that kind of stuff I think is really good for the mind. Just and there's probably the engineering me as well. Like, how do I get something down and out? But that's how I think about it. But yeah, Mario Kart's a good example. Lego's another one. Like, I'm just a big kid, basically.
Well, it's been so good. Thank you so much, Jehan, today for your time and sharing your journey and insight with us. So I've learned so much. So to our audience, so we appreciate your time as well and commitment to creating a better world through your entrepreneurial passions. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. And keep an eye out for the invitations for our next Lift Talk. And until then, continue to be the change maker innovations that you are. And always remember, when purpose meets passion, amazing things happen. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you, Jehan, for your time. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much, Irene. That was great. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.